What's going on YouTube? This is SG1 Sports and you're watching our SEC football channel. It's time for our Week 5 power rankings heading into Week 5 of the college football season. Already this season has flown by, already a third of the way done for most teams, and it's really heating up in the SEC. This is going to be, we thought Georgia, Alabama was going to be those two teams. They're going to meet in the SEC championship, and they're both going to probably be there with 12-0, maybe 11-1. I tell you what, there are some other teams that I think have a real shot in the SEC this year. Like I said, it is really starting to heat up. I can't wait for some of these matchups that are coming down the road. But we start with number 14, and that is Arkansas. It was a new low for the Razorbacks as they lose to San Jose State, 31-24. There's no excuse for losing to a team like that. They're in Chad Morris's second season. Last year, okay, you can maybe cut them a break. It was Chad Morris's first year, but they had a good recruiting class. I mean, there's just no excuse for losing to a team like this. You have two different options at quarterback. You got good running backs. I mean, there's just no excuse for losing to a team like San Jose State. I think Arkansas clearly has to be at number 14. And if it wasn't for Arkansas, our bottom team would obviously be Tennessee, because Tennessee's been awful this year as well. They're just thankful that Arkansas is in this conference. Tennessee loses to Florida 34-3. Had absolutely no offense in this game. Once again, they just continue to struggle. I don't know what it is. You would expect them to play better than this. You look at the roster, the talent that they have. I'm scratching my head over because I really don't know. I thought this game would be closer. I didn't expect them to win, but I thought they could keep it to about a 10, 14-point game, something like that. But no, Florida came out and just blew them out. Game was over. Really at halftime. There wasn't a huge score at halftime, but you could kind of tell. Vanderbilt is at number 12. Vandy hasn't looked great. I mean, they're 0-3. They haven't won a game yet. It's rare to see a team that's 0-3 be ranked ahead of two teams that have wins, but it's just because of the schedule. I mean, you haven't had any break if you're Vanderbilt. You play Georgia, then you go on the road and play Purdue, then you play LSU. So I'm cutting them a break. I think they're better than both Arkansas and Tennessee right now. They put up 38 points against a very good LSU defense. Now, let's be fair. LSU, once they got the big lead, maybe let up a little bit in that game, put in some subs. But Vandy did have 17 points at halftime. So the offense wasn't awful for them. Keyshawn Bond had 130 yards on the ground. So there were some bright spots for Vanderbilt. Number 11 is Ole Miss. A controversial finish against Cal. Probably should have reviewed that final play, but that was strange, because if you review it and they don't get it, if they didn't get the touchdown, then you just gave them a free timeout. So I don't know how you deal with that. Maybe they should have just got it right on the field to begin with. But Ole Miss looks okay right now. They're not an awful team. They're maybe a little bit better, actually, than I thought they would be at this point. Defense has played decent for them, and they're at number 11. Number 10 is South Carolina. Boy, it's been a rough start for the Gamecocks, as they are now 1-3. We knew coming in they had the toughest schedule in the country. We knew that they were going to struggle, but we didn't expect them to lose to North Carolina. That was really the start of it. Didn't expect them to beat Alabama. That was no surprise. But then they lose to Missouri, and it wasn't just the way that they lost. It wasn't just that they lost. It was the way that they lost, 34-14. The offense just really was non-existent for the Gamecocks. Brian Edwards had over 100 yards receiving. He was the bright spot for them, but they couldn't slow down Missouri. They couldn't do anything on offense, and they were just dominated in this game, flat out dominated. Kentucky is at number 9. I think they're better than their record would suggest. I realize they're 2-2, but they took Florida down to the last second, and they were on the road at Mississippi State. Tough environment. Had a pick 6 early in the game. Things just didn't go their way, but I don't think they were as bad as the score may look in that game. I think Kentucky's still a very good team. I think they're a team that is capable of beating pretty much anyone in the SEC. Maybe not Georgia, or in the division, I should say. Maybe not Georgia, but you saw they almost beat Florida. I think they'll have a chance against Missouri and South Carolina and these other teams in the East. This is a pretty good football team. And don't overlook the Wildcats. Number 8 is Missouri. They are on the rise. Remember, they lost to Wyoming in Week 1. Since then, they've looked really good. This is the Missouri team I expected to see this year. I thought they were going to be pretty solid this year. Kellen Bryant has really looked good throwing the football, not just running it. He's looked good throwing it. This is a very good offense right now. The defense, I think, is a little bit underrated. They did a very nice job against South Carolina getting that win. They're 3-1, 1-0 in the SEC now. If they go on to have a really good year, you're going to look back and say, wow, How did we lose to Wyoming? Now, they're probably not going to get to go to a bowl game or anything because they have the ban, but so it won't matter. But still, that could be a very difficult loss to look back on. Number 7 is Mississippi State. Nice win over Kentucky. Garrett Schrader comes in at quarterback, and he's looked pretty good, especially running the football. He brings a different element, and I realize Tommy Stevens and Keaton Thompson both are dual threat guys, but to me, Garrett Schrader looks like the better runner. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just what I'm seeing when I watch him play. This offense seems to play better with him in there. They're really running the football well. Colin Hill, very, very good running back that we talked about all the way back in the preseason. I think he's an underrated guy as well. And they held Kentucky to just 13 points. So nice win there for Mississippi State. Number 6 is Texas A&M. They lose to Auburn, and I actually thought about dropping them below Mississippi State and Missouri, but I'm going to give them credit for playing a tough schedule early. They really didn't stay in the game against Clemson. They actually outgained Auburn, though, and that's a big thing. You look at the score and you say, well, Auburn had a big lead all game, and it wound up a late touchdown. It was an 8-point game. But Texas A&M actually had more yards in this game than Auburn. So they actually played them pretty tough. They just struggled they'd move the ball a little bit, then they kind of stall out, and they couldn't run the ball at all. That was a big problem for them. So they still have a lot to work on, but they're still a pretty good football team. Florida with a big win over Tennessee. They are now 4-0, 2-0 in the SEC, and they've won their games. That's all that really matters at this point. Florida is 4-0. I know they struggled against Miami and Kentucky, but they took care of business against Tennessee. Kyle Trask has come in and looks very good at quarterback. Very solid guy there for them. He may not win a Heisman Trophy, but he is more than capable of running this offense. And all of a sudden, this team could just be one win away. A big win over Florida, or an upset over Georgia, I should say, for the Florida Gators. And they might just get to an SEC championship, as bad as it has been early on. They have weathered the storm. They're 4-0, and now it looks like they're starting to click. Auburn is at number 4. Defense has been dominant. Might be the best defense in the SEC. Actually, I think it is. I think it's definitely the best defensive line. If you get to 3rd and long on this team, you can pretty much forget it, because that defensive line is just going to dominate. And it's as you get more into the game, they wear teams down. That pass rush gets better and better as you go through the game. Bo Nix has struggled at times. He's a freshman. Missed 3 wide open deep balls that would have been touchdowns in this game, or it would have been a complete blowout. He's going to start hitting those passes soon, and when he does, this offense is going to explode, I'm telling you. Number 3 is Georgia. Nice win over Notre Dame. Very big win over Notre Dame, I should say. I wasn't overly impressed with this team watching this game. First chance to see them really tested. Now, Notre Dame, I think, is better than some people think, and even myself. They showed me that they're a good football team. But the offense for Georgia is just something is not there for them. I don't know what it is. I think it's all the weapons that they lost at wide receiver maybe. They still have time to get that going, though. I'm not worried about Georgia. I still think they probably win the East. They might even go undefeated in the regular season. But they're not quite as good as they were at this time last year. Let's just say that. Number 2 is Alabama. They are 4-0, 1-0 in the SEC. 49-7 win over Southern Miss. No surprise there. Tua didn't even play all that much. The receivers you talked about, I just talked about the receivers for Georgia that they lost last year. What a difference it makes. I mean, Tua's got these guys he can throw to that you can throw a screen pass and it could be a touchdown, because they are so electrifying at the wide receiver position, something that Alabama really hasn't had in previous years. Now, maybe they're not running the football quite as well this season, but that offense still is very dangerous. But I have LSU still as that number 1 team in the SEC. Everyone's going to point to the defense and say, well, you gave up 38 points to Vanderbilt. Well, the offense scored 66. And if you watch college football, teams that score really big numbers like 60 points or whatever, their defense is going to give up some stuff because they're scoring so fast. The offense is so dominant. It just happens. You give up some points. You got the subs in there early because you're up big. So I'm not worried about LSU's defense. Maybe they're not as good as an Auburn defense or even Alabama's defense or Georgia's defense. But because of the way that offense is playing, I still, on a neutral field, would take LSU over anyone else in the SEC if they played this week. I know most people are going to probably disagree with that, but that's my take, what I've seen so far. And if we're going by resume, I think you would have to put LSU at number 1 as well. What do you guys think about the SEC and the power rankings? How would you rank these teams? What do you think about my rankings? Do you like them, dislike them? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? anything that you would like to add, feel free to do that down in the comments below. We will continue to do this each and every week throughout the rest of the season. I know I missed last week, but I should not miss any more weeks. And now that we've been through week 4, we really know a lot about these teams. And I'm telling you, there are really 5 legitimate contenders in the SEC, I think, and that includes Florida. I know they haven't looked great, but I think you have to include them in there because they're undefeated at this point and because they have that potential, and it's going to be a great race seeing how this thing shakes out the rest of the way. But again, give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports SEC Football Channel.